Beurre, Beurre Blanc, Beurre Blanc, Blanc. Beurre Blanc is a classic French sauce, very delicious, but this channel is about hacking recipes with science, so that's exactly what we're gonna do. Take a look at this sauce right here in this bowl. I'm gonna make it very large so that you can see it. And this is Beurre Blanc sauce. It has actually been sitting in my fridge for 5 days. I made it last Thursday night and it's been stable ever since, right? And if you've ever made Beurre Blanc sauce, then you know that's unusual. It's likely to fall apart on you in only, I don't know, 30 minutes if you don't keep it warm. And so I'm gonna show you exactly how I did that. We're going to go over the ingredients and the equipment that we need, but first I wanted to show you the sauce that I had made previously. Like I said, it's been sitting in my fridge for 5 days and it's still stable. The sauce has not broken, and if you take a look at the consistency, look at that. It may be a little bit too thick, right? I mean, obviously it's been 5 days, so I wouldn't serve this for dinner service, but if you wanted to, thin it out a little bit, you could always add water and whisk, but take a look at this. 5 days in the fridge and it's still stabilized. And if I were to taste it, okay, I'm gonna have a little taste right here. Yep, still tastes like Beurre Blanc sauce, right? So this is what you can achieve if you follow this recipe. Like I was saying, so Beurre Blanc in French means white butter, and we're going to use a lot of it, right? We're not going to use this whole block of butter, but I wanted to place that in front of you, so just to kind of emphasize, there's going to be a lot of butter in this recipe. Like the name said, it is white butter. And then we have, as part of the emulsification, we have vinegar, we have white wine. It's best to use dry white wine. A dry French wine would work best, but go ahead and use what you have, right? We'll need the shallots for the infusion. I've got a whisk and I've got my measuring spoons. Now, the key ingredient for this recipe is this thing right here, xanthan gum. There's been a lot of talk about this as a kind of almost magical emulsifier, stabilizer. And having used it, I have to say I agree. It's really, wonderful. It's really effective. So we're going to use this to stabilize the Beurre Blanc sauce. But one key important point that you should know is that xanthan gum works best if you first put it inside some kind of liquid fat. In this case, I have melted butter right here. So similar to the way that you would make a roux, right? You'd bake general purpose flour into butter. We're going to do the same thing with xanthan gum and then pour that into the sauce. So it's kind of like you're making roux with xanthan gum, right? So in terms of the ingredients, obviously it's not a whole lot. It's actually a simple recipe, but the tricky part is in the whisking and the emulsification process, and sometimes the sauce does break. And the point of this recipe is that xanthan gum solves two problems. The first thing is that when you use this as a stabilizer, the emulsification process itself becomes very easy. And you'll see that in action when we go to the next segment with a demo. And then, of course, as you just saw, once you place xanthan gum inside the sauce, it will be very stabilized and you don't have to worry about having it break. Let's start the cookie demo, and I've got half a shallot cut into my saucepan. By the way, the reason why this is called a saucepan is because the bottom is rounded, you see, not like regular pans, and that makes the whisking very easy, and I recommend it for using sauces. But anyways, I've got my shallots sliced and ready for the infusion. And oh, by the way, sorry, I'll have the ingredients and the proportions listed in the video descriptions down below, so you don't have to memorize anything. You can simply watch and enjoy the cooking demo, and the information will be down below. But anyway, so I've got half a cup of dry white wine. which I'm going to pour into the pan. And for the vinegar, I'm going to add roughly about 2 tablespoons. And I'm using rice vinegar because its slightly sweeter taste is something that I enjoy. And now, after a little bit of whisking, we're going to turn on the heat and reduce this liquid. Now, the traditional recipe would say that you need to reduce this down to almost nothing, right? Where the liquid has almost completely evaporated. We're not going to do that, right? What we're going to do is reduce it about halfway, and we want the liquid to be there so that the xanthan gum can combine with that and start creating the emulsification. So I'm going to reduce this down to about half, and we'll come back when that's happened. So I've had this on the stovetop for about 3 or 4 minutes, constantly whisking. I can tell you it already smells terrific. And what you want to look for is to see that there's enough liquid for the xanthan gum to combine and begin the emulsification process. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this through a strainer to get out the shallots, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how the xanthan gum is added. Shallots have been strained out. We didn't really need it anymore. The infusion has taken place, and we've got about this amount of liquid left over. So now what we're going to do is we're going to thicken the white wine and the vinegar with the xanthan gum. And like I was saying, the xanthan gum works best if you combine it with a fat prior to the addition to the sauce. So I've got this melted butter. It's about a dab of butter that I melted in the microwave. And to this, I'm going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum. Just 1 second. Okay. So it's just a little dab. And that's the beauty about this method, which is that there's so little xanthan gum being used that it won't have any impact on the taste, right? So you kind of just mix that in. Okay, I'm going to mix that. And the point of doing this mixture is because it enhances the thickening ability of the xanthan gum and also prevents clumping, right? Which is really this, similar to the reasoning that we use for, for making a roux. So we have this here. We got it mixed. Okay, got it mixed pretty well. And then we're going to add that to the liquid. Okay. And now we're going to start whisking so as to thicken the whole sauce. So as you can see, it's starting to come together, right? Okay. And this is when we start to add, we're going to turn the heat down. We're going to keep the heat pretty low. And now that we've got the xanthan gum in there, we can go ahead and start putting in our butter. So let me take a few slices out of this huge slab that we have, and we'll get that started. And you don't want to add too much, just a little bit at a time will do. Oops. And you can see that, the white wine and vinegar has already thickened with the butter, the xanthan gum, and the emulsification is already starting to take hold. So basically, you whisk, 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 and you keep adding butter, and you'll see that throughout the, from start to finish, the whole process. So you start adding butter and whisk, whisk, whisk. Okay, so that's incorporated. You can see how this method is so much easier than the traditional one because, the thickening happens so quickly, right? And there's very little chance that the sauce is going to break at this point. So we'll turn up the heat a little bit to quicken the process, and we'll keep whisking in the butter. Now, the seasoning, in terms of adding any salt or pepper, I keep that to the end. I'm actually going to leave it out of this video because you can, you know, put in as much salt and pepper as you'd like. Everybody understands how to do that. So I'm going to show you the emulsification process and see how easy it is and how stabilized it holds. Right? See, look at this. It's already having that thickening effect. The emulsification is taking place. The butter is being incorporated, and it already smells terrific, I gotta tell you, right? And if you've ever made Beurre Blanc sauce the traditional way, you can see, as a basis of comparison, that it really is super easy with the Xanthan Gum, okay? So I'm gonna put in another slab of butter here. Like I said, it's a lot of butter, and I've got the heat turned up. I'm going to turn it down a little bit because it's bubbling, and you don't want that. You don't want to see bubbling, just a gradual melting of the butter into the emulsification. And so we're pretty much there. I'm not going to add any more butter because I think you've got the idea. You know, so let's melt this down. Let's complete the emulsification, and we're pretty much there, right? So I'm going to take this sauce and I'm going to pour it into a bowl so that you can see the consistency. Well, obviously you can't taste it, but I wish you could taste it because it already smells terrific. But anyways, look how easy it is, right? And this is stabilized. Like I said, you could put this in the fridge and store it for, I don't know, a day or two. I don't know if you would want to do that. You probably want to serve this right away, but I'm saying, you know, even if you're serving this on the same day, having a stabilized Beurre Blanc sauce takes a lot of worry out of the sauce breaking, and you can focus on your other main dishes. The sauce is finished. I went ahead and seasoned it to my taste, and you can see it right here. And here we go. Let's check the consistency. Look. You can see that it's a sauce, but very stable, right? And it's creamy, it's luxurious, and if I were to taste it, let's give it a little taste here. Okay. Yeah, this would go perfect on fish. I think I'll take this sauce and cook dinner with it. But anyways, you know, the benefit of this recipe, like I said, was that it's so easy to keep it stabilized. The traditional method of keeping Beurre Blanc stabilized means basically keeping it warm, but not too hot, and that's why it's so difficult. You have to keep it at a certain temperature range, and that's not always possible when you're busy in the kitchen. And if it breaks, there are ways to fix it, right? By adding more water and whisking again and again and again. But a better answer is, why not prevent it from breaking in the first place? And in fact, let's add a stabilizer to hold it together and make the entire emulsification process very simple. So there you go.